Oh my god, it's my favorite time of the week. Tuesday, that means new Chainsaw Man. I can't wait to see what happens after the climactic cliffhanger that was left on the last chapter, 230. Did Asa really consent? That is the question. It's time to check this out. Goodbye, Pochita. That's a weird title. Alright. I'm cool. I trust in Fujimoto. I trust the system.
12 seconds later.
What the fuck am I reading? Final chapter coming 3/24? What is this? I gotta check the comments online. I gotta figure out what's going on. What do you think of this chapter of Chainsaw Man? What do you mean JJK has a better ending? Jet, you're gonna get abandoned. I'm bringing you to the firehouse. Don't attack my mic. Give me more thoughts. What do you mean? JJK is awful. You're a bad cat. You're a bad cat. This is the chapter that kind of broke the internet for a couple days. It seems like it's coming down. So originally when I read this chapter, I was like most people. I was like, what the fuck is happening? Like, especially because last chapter did not feel like it was coming to an end. So for all of a sudden this chapter to drop, and it's kind of sad in a way. Like, we'll get into it. But I was not expecting a chapter that would imply that part 2 is coming to an end, because part 2 still has like a lot of loose ends, I would say. There's like the Death Devil, there is who is Nayuta actually dead, which obviously at this point she more than likely is. There's what Yoshida's purpose was. There's still like, is Asa gonna get her body back from Yoro? And again, there's still one more chapter left, so this could tie it all up in a neat little bow. Like, I do, at the end of the day, trust Fujimoto and his vision, but it felt kind of sudden at first. So when I first read it, I felt, this is kind of fucking nuts. What is happening? Like, all of a sudden, this is the end? Feels like we're at the midpoint, or at least the end of the Denji Yoro battle, but there's still like the whole Death Devil thing that's not addressed. And because Denji had just eaten the Death Devil, and it's like, what is gonna happen next? And then all of a sudden this chapter comes out, and upon first reading it, my initial reaction was, again, like I said, what the fuck is happening? But as I've kind of stewed on it, I realize that Pochita's right. Like, Denji's life kind of sucks with Pochita in it. Being Chainsaw Man is not a net positive for Denji. I would say, I don't know if I'd call it a negative necessarily, but it's not positive. It seems, I wouldn't say neutral, because I feel like being indebted to the Yakuza is also bad with the stuff that he was doing. But to Pochita's point where he says, like, you were happy living that life, I feel like that's right. And I know that that's literally what the text is saying, but it feels like Denji hasn't really been happy since the end of part 1. And even during part 1, he was entirely confused about things he wants. I mean, Denji has a very childlike idea of what he wants in part 1, right? Like, he wants to touch a boob, and then he touches Power's boob, and it's like, ugh, it's not that great. And then he's like, oh, well, if it's Makima's, maybe it'll be better because, you know, I'm actually attracted to her. I actually find her attractive. And then obviously, you know, Makima just uses Denji to get to Chainsaw Man, which is the through line with everything, is everybody uses Denji to get to Chainsaw Man. Yoro is no different. Asa's the only one who really hasn't at this point. But part 1 is very childish. Like even the devils that they face are things that kids are typically afraid of. Like kids are afraid of guns. They're afraid of darkness. They're afraid of, you know, tomatoes. I know it, like, that's not a serious devil, but tomatoes, bat, leeches, things of these natures are things that kids are typically afraid of. And it reads as, again, a very childish view of the world. Like part 1 is Denji has, obviously he's not a child, he's like 17 in part 1, but he's finally learning to live a little bit. And because he hasn't really had a childhood, now is his time to have a childhood. So he's kind of figuring that all out. He's trying to figure out what it means to want things and to achieve things, and then what it means to ultimately hold on to those things. And then unfortunately lose them, because he loses power and Aki at the end of it. He loses his family, and the only thing that he knows is being Chainsaw Man. So that's his proclamation at the end of part 1, right? Is I want to be Chainsaw Man. Part 2, it opens up. It's pretty clear that Chainsaw Man is not, I wouldn't say it's not fulfilling for Denji, because it definitely is fulfilling for him in some way, but it's not like it's scratching the itch that he thinks it does. He likes Chainsaw Man because it gets him a bunch of recognition and a bunch of like placement in society, and people recognize him. And part 2 begins, he does a transformation, right, into Chainsaw Man. He saves a cat. Everybody loves him. But it's made pretty explicitly clear that he is unhappy even though he's achieved normal life according to him. So he's going to school, he has Nayuta. Him and Nayuta have a conversation. She asked if he's unhappy, and I can't remember if he says yes. It was either he says yes or he wasn't sure. I'd have to go back and look at the chapter, but that's like 100 chapters ago. So Denji is unfulfilled. He's not fulfilled in part 2. You know, he's having to grow up a little bit because he's taking care of Nayuta, and he has all the dogs and Meowie. And even if you look at like the devils that appear in part 2, they're drastically different from part 1. They're things that like are more adult fears, I would say. And it's kind of funny to say, but it's like falling, for example, is one. Like the fear of falling, but not like falling down and hurting yourself, but like falling, failing, giving into guilt, trauma, reminder, justice, falling into despair, aging, plagues, war, famine, and death are all things that adults are typically more worried about than like guns and bats. You know what I'm saying? Like there's different anxieties that come with adulthood that are not like immediate threats to people. Like failing is not an immediate threat to most people. Aging is an immediate threat, but it's something that's a little more abstract. It's a systematic thing it's gonna happen anyway. You can't beat time. You can't beat it. It's not gonna happen. It's just something you live with. They're, again, abstract. They're just there. They exist. It's like death and taxes, 2 things that adults fear the most. And Denji, he's unhappy. He's not happy. He's only happy when he's Chainsaw Man, and even that it never really read to me as real happy. It's just kind of like a coping mechanism that pops out when something gets a little too real and the feelings become a little too hard for him to confront. Pochita Chainsaw Man is the like a pillow fort that kids make when they're being like overstressed and overstimulated by something and they don't want to confront it. That is Chainsaw Man to Denji. Every time there's a big conflict, he changes into him. I don't think that is coincidental. It's intentional. So why does Pochita want to erase himself? And this is where I said I think Pochita's right. I think he realizes that Denji's just not happy. And I know like he was about to have sex or whatever, but again, I think Pochita's right. I don't think that sex would have been fulfilling. We found that for most of the things that Denji has thought he'd wanted, they're not fulfilling. Like touching boobs, for example, was not as fulfilling as he thought it would be. The pursuit of sexual like intimacy is not the thing that Denji actually wants. He wants like love and affection, all that. But he's also kind of stupid, and he doesn't realize that you can have intimacy without the sexual part, because that's, again, he didn't have a childhood. He killed his dad when he was really young, and he was, for all intents and purposes, the implication he was raised by a Yakuza boss. So I don't think he had the best childhood, and it didn't seem like he was raised in a good environment. So I think that is kind of the point, is that Denji is a emotionally repressed young man. He's 18 in part 2, and he can't cope with growing up. And he can't cope with understanding normal happiness. He can't like survive in the world without having a dream. So that's kind of what fuels Denji, right? Is every time of part 2, or every Everything in Chainsaw Man and Denji's life revolves around a dream. He has a dream to have a family, have friends, eat food, all that kind of stuff. And the stuff that's like literally I'm going to eat good food, it's not a disappointment, but it's the more abstract things like, oh, I want love, I want intimacy, I'm gonna touch a boob. And he doesn't. It's disappointing. It's not really all that exciting. And I think that Pochita recognizes that Denji can't really be anybody without Chainsaw Man, that Chainsaw Man is a detractor to Denji's life more than it adds anything good to it. It's more that Chainsaw Man is a burden on Denji's life more than anything else. And I think that's kind of what Pochita is when he says that Denji can only find heaven in hell because his brain is all messed up. I think that's what he means, is that he realizes that like Denji, he's not happy unless he's dreaming. And maybe that's Pochita not understanding Denji. I mean, they did set up the chapter before that devils have a hard time understanding human emotions. Like they can kind of get them, but the things that humans find like guilty, humans and animals, because Yoro explicitly talks about a bird eating a worm and it feeling guilty, and Asa feeling guilty about certain things, and Yoro not understanding that because she's a devil. So, you know, guilt and what feels bad for devils is way different than what feels bad for humans. So it might be that Pochita is misunderstanding Denji as well in this moment. And it's not really that he can find heaven and hell, is that when he was growing up, he always had Pochita by his side. And then he became Chainsaw Man, and yes, Pochita was no longer by his side physically, but he was inside of him, and they could still somewhat communicate. So I think it could be a misunderstanding, but it could be Pochita being 1,000% right. We're not going to know till the next chapter comes out and hopefully it shows us what the intention is, but I think it could go either way. I'm excited to see what happens. I'm optimistic to see where this goes. I think there's a lot of things you could talk about in this chapter, but this is already 14 minutes and I really didn't want to spend this much time talking about it because it's like literally 30 seconds of my life to read it, but I think it's interesting. And at first when I read this, I was like, what the fuck is happening? But then I thought about it a little more, and I said, there's no way that Fujimoto would beat Gigi Akutami and would fumble this bad. I think he has a vision, and I'm going to trust it. And even if we get part 3 out of it, or even if it ends, I think it'll be satisfying. So make sure you like and subscribe, which is so irritating to say, and let me know your thoughts in the comments. Bye! There was one more thing that I wanted to say, and I forgot to say it, but this is post-editing. It would have been so fucking funny if this chapter was not 231, but was 235, or this chapter was 236 after the last one, which would have been 235, because it would have lined up perfectly with JJK, and that would have been so funny. I really think the internet would have fucking died. And then I took a video of interviewing 2 of my dogs, so I'm just gonna throw it here at the end. What do you think of that chapter of Chainsaw Man? Stop it. Don't put your nose on it. Finnegan, your turn. What do you think?